This is Michaela Conley, HP CareerNet and Health Promotion Live. Thank you for being here today. Happy Friday again. Today we have part 2 of Dee Eddington and Jennifer Pitt's two-part series. Glad to have you back, both of you. We had lots of good feedback from last week, so really looking forward to what else you've got to share with us today. Kelly, are you ready to reintroduce Dee and Jennifer?
Yes, I am, and the slides are available on the website as well.
Ha! Good call.
So they're at hplive.org if you want to follow along on your own with the slides. And, okay, today we have Dee Eddington and Jennifer Pitts. Dee Eddington is the founder and chairman of Eddington Associates. He is the founder and professor of the University of Michigan Health Management Research Center and was the director of the center until June of 2011. In addition to his research and teaching, Dr. Eddington has spent 25 years in academic administration. Trained in mathematics, kinesiology, and biochemistry, Dr. Eddington received his BS and PhD degrees from Michigan State University and completed his MS at Florida State University. He did postdoctoral work at the University of Toronto and taught at the University of Massachusetts before coming to Michigan in 1976. And we also have Jennifer Pitts with us today. Jennifer is the co-founder and Chief Strategy Officer at Eddington Associates. She has more than 20 years of healthcare research and consulting experience in both academic and applied settings. Before joining Eddington Associates, Dr. Pitts spent 12 years with Pfizer Health Solutions as a director of the Outcomes and Analytics Unit. At PHS, she was involved with the design and evaluation of health improvement programs and community programs at the local, state, and federal levels across the United States as well as abroad. Jennifer also previously held positions at UCLA's Division of General Internal Health Medicine and Health Services Research, Kaiser Permanente's Organization Effectiveness Division, and Casa Colina Medical Rehabilitation Hospital in Pomona, California. And we are pleased to have them back. And Dee, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Kelly and Michaela. We're happy to be back. And today we'll focus on positive health for the main theme today. It follows up our previous theme of shared values and shared results. But last time, as some of you were there last time on the webinar, we didn't get quite finished with it. So I'm going to go back to the April 25th, a couple of weeks ago, session and finish up about 5 more slides that we didn't get to. And that was the fifth pillar around zero trends. And that's quality assurance or evaluation and communication and so forth, where you get all the data. Now, everyone has a way to measure their programs. This is just one example of how we do it. So it doesn't mean that it's any better than anyone else's, but it's just the software that we use. And integrates all the data. You have to have a conceptual outcomes, and last time I talked about that framework. And provide feedback and communications. And the feedback and communication, I think, is just as important as the evaluation. So I'll talk about that, but the purpose of it is support decisions with evidence. So when people make decisions about their program, they have the evidence to say why they made that decision. This is the model that we put out and we talked a lot about last time. It goes from the left with the vision and commitment and the culture and the environment, and then where wellness typically has a focus on prevention of wellness, risk management, and disease management. And then on the right-hand side, the program impact, that's looking at what are the results for the workplace and the shared values and positive return. What's the results for the workforce in terms of how they engage and how they're thriving. And then overall, is the best place to work. And that model is supported by the 5 pillars. And today, just to finish up with the 5th pillar, when we talk about quality assurance, we're talking about continuous improvement as well. And when we measure things in our software, we give feedback to each one of the pillars and how are we doing and any of the people that are responsible. Then we talk about evaluation and are we making progress towards the vision. And the system looks something like this, and each of us have our own system. So we put all the data in from every place we can connect, and put it into the engine. And then on the right-hand side, we're measuring the progress towards a comprehensive evaluation framework, and that framework we again talked about last time. And if any of you missed the last time, those slides I think Kelly mentioned are available. So we consolidate all the data in proprietary algorithms, get data over to the comprehensive framework to see how we're doing, and then we give timely feedback, and it does guide the journey. Then as you get feedback on how you're doing, and then we know how you got where you are, and then what you have to do to continue on towards the vision. And then that was evaluation. And then the other two things I mentioned about the value of this quality assurance program, which I think is important and maybe more important than the evaluation, is feedback and communication. We give feedback to all the group, the senior leaderships, the managers, the employees, and the program owners. That's usually the wellness people. And they all communicate. And then you can use it as a communication tool. So when the senior leader wants to get something out to everyone, they can put it on the system, and it goes out to each of the other stakeholders in the organization. And the whole idea is around GPS. We call it a corporate positioning system, but it could be organizational OPS or GPS. A lot of ways to talk about it. But we do the same thing as the GPS. We get where the vision is. That's where the destination. We get what to measure. That's the route to take to get there. And then we say, where are you now? And that's what we get through the evaluation of the environment and culture. So you see the 6 steps there at the bottom. So in a very small nutshell, that's part of the quality assurance that we do. So now we'll go into today. Talk about positive health. And there's a reason we have positive in front of health, because I think that's where we're going. And it depends on your definition of health. So it could be that health does include positive, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's equated to health care, which is disease and medical. So it's really difficult to talk about these things when each of us have different definitions. And so right now we're using positive health to define what we mean by health, but also what we mean by positive. We'll talk about that a lot today. Thought questions. Before we get too far, this is what drove me and Jennifer towards healthy, the Beyond Zero Trends book that's coming out in July, August this year. But when I put out Zero Trends in 2009, we put that low risk was sort of the goal for people. That's where I thought Americans and maybe anyone in the world could get to a 0, 1, or 2 risk. But since then, I've over the 6 years and another 250 publications and presentations and talking to a lot of people, I've found that I don't think all low-risk people are the same. There's something different about some low-risk people. And there's some people that just they're more energy, they have more resilience, they're more optimistic, realistically optimistic, not non-realistic. And they're creative and so forth. So there are some differences there in those people. And then you might say, what words, and I just give some of the words, to describe the most healthiest people that you know. So I worry about that. I didn't worry about it, but I worried that we were missing something in low risk. It just wasn't far enough. And we'll talk a lot about positive deviants or positive outliers today, because I think those are the people that we want to model the future around. And there's negative deviants too, and negative outliers on the other side. Ones are really, really bad and run the toxic environments and the companies and just negative all the time. So we want to focus on the positive deviant. So that's one thing that we're talking about today. And We won't talk much about successful companies, but it's the same idea. You know, are there some best workplaces that are better than others? And I think that's clear. I think the positive outliers in companies are just as prevalent as the positive outliers for individuals. And then what words would you describe the best places to work? And when we ask that question in a seminar, we always get the same kinds of answers. It's fun, they're creative, they're optimistic, they work well together, they respect each other. And there's a whole bunch of things that we get that really describe the positive outliers for companies. So as we go through this, think about these questions. I probably talked too much about them, but think of your own issues, because that's what's the important part of this session from my point of view. Not what I say or what the slides say, but what are you thinking, and how can you think that this will be important to you? And it may not be important, and that's fine too. But does it stimulate something that is important to you? And that's really the key. What do you come away with from the seminar that helps you, whether it's what we say or not what we say? So the issue is, how do we make today's outliers tomorrow's norms? This is a picture. These pictures are around the individual. So we'll focus mainly on the individual today, but we can have the same discussion about how we make today's outliers in organizations tomorrow's norm. So this is on the person today. I don't know what in that cup of tea there. I'm not sure what's there. At least it's not white and dust down there. So. But this is a pretty healthy organization. Pretty healthy things to do. It's family support. It's solitude. It's drinking the right kind of liquids. It's exercising in the pool or wherever. So evolving practices. I think this is important. I took out of this some of the current practices, but what about the evolving practices? What are we going to be doing in the future? The new questions, I think, how do we help the healthy people stay healthy? And actually, the healthy, not only just the healthy, defined as zero trends, 0, 1, or 2 risk, but the healthiest of the healthy outliers. And how do we help people thrive? And thrive is really the key, I think, in people. It ties in functionality, it ties in some conceptual, it ties in vitality. So that's really where we're trying to get to. What are the precursors to positive outliers? We've talked a lot about precursors to disease, and that's 35 years of work I did at least on this. And now I'm interested in what are the precursors to happiness and precursors to people who thrive. So new solutions support the total population, so that we certainly have to get to healthy people. I agree with that. But it has to be the healthy population as well. You can't just be 1 or 2 people, or 10 or 20 or 50 people. It has to be a total population. So we need to continue to think in terms of bigger thoughts than just single interventions with single people. So there needs to be some interventions related to the population. And how do we create a thriving workplace in cultures and environment? And that goes along with above a thriving person. We need both. We need thriving people and thriving organizations. We've got to redefine health, and I talked about that before. If you already have a vision of health that includes all these things, then you don't need the word positive. But I think currently, I think most people in the world probably need something else besides just the word health. It's been around a long time, and it's sort of equated in many places, as I said before, with health care. And we all know it's different, but the world seems to get them confused occasionally. And then how do we redefine organizational success? Is our organization just things to create power and wealth? Or is it more around the quality of life of the people and the quality of life they bring to the community and to the world at large? So that really needs to be defined as we go forward. We need to think big. And I think that's one thing that we're trying to focus on, thinking big as we go forward. Increase in positive disciplines. There's a lot of things that drove us to this, so not just our own work, not just the work I've done for 35 years and Jennifer's done for 20 years. But it's evaluation of positive emotions, quality of life, engagement, purpose, the meaningful life. Those are major things that I think people are going to need going forward to really live to the high, thriving lifestyle that we would wish for everyone if they choose. Positive health, subjective health, as well as biological and functional health. We've sort of given up on, we never even gave it a chance to subjective health. And I think that's really the issue. What's the emotional health? How do you feel? And I think that's so important, and people make decisions based on emotions. Biological is certainly critical. We've been very good at that. Wellness is focused on that probably more than anything. In functional health, can you get around, and are you doing well and doing your job and your family and so forth? So all of it's important. Positive health is added in there primarily because we've added the subjective part and emotions. Positive neuroscience, there's a lot of things coming up in the neuroscience field right now, and some of it we don't know what to do with yet, but it has come up with the idea that we can change, and we can change our mind if we do certain things. We can change the way we react. So we're not genetically programmed to be negative. We're not genetically programmed to be optimistic. But we can be, you can get to where you want to get if you follow the ideas of just thinking that way. Pretty soon the neural pathways will come out natural for you, or we can build them that way. Other dimensions, positive organizational health. I think this is really critical. This has been led by Positive Organizational Scholarship, a group here at University of Michigan. Cameron, Dutton, and Quinn. We've got a book out on that. It was a 2003 book, but if you want to go to Oxford and look at the Oxford Positive Organizational Health, you get to the 2011 copy of that. But what does a positive organization look like? Because as you know, at least my feeling is, you can't have positive individuals if you don't have a positive organization. So they go hand in hand. We have to be developing both. And we can't just focus on individuals, and we can't just focus on the organization. But we have to focus on both. Positive leadership. This has been something that Kim Blanchard has pushed a lot, and there are other people as well, but cultivating a positive climate and relationships and communication and positive meaning. How do we help people do the right thing? How do we help people have positive work? How do we recognize their positive work? Instead of focus on what they're doing wrong, let's focus on what they're doing right. So our definition of success for organization, we certainly want to continue to do what we had before with criteria of success about wealth creation and power and health. But we also see a world, and you can read that, where resilience and thriving, engaged in high quality, meaningful work, collaborating, creative, inspired colleagues. And in organizations, so that's the individual. Then they live in organizations, they work in organizations where they feel supported, valued, challenged. And I can't imagine anyone that wouldn't like to work in a place like that. I mean, that just is sort of the ideal. I don't know if many of you are in that workplace. I wasn't at the University of Michigan. We didn't have that workplace like that. We had some of it, but I think probably every company has some of it. But how do we get to where everyone values that? How do we have shared values? How do we have shared results where people, after they do it, they all feel like they got what they wanted out of the organization, and the organization got what they wanted out of the people? So it helps both ways. And now, as long as those things are shared, then we have a win-win. And that's some of the kind of things that we think about we ought to do. Self-leadership, we talked about this last time. It's a process of engaging in change, good decisions, having resilience, strengths, and leading, growing, and thriving relationships. That's something I think everybody would like to think about as well. Can you get there? And Jennifer's going to talk a lot about how we think you can get there. If you're healthy, stay healthy. Don't get worse. And take actions to make improvements if you need to. And I think that, I know all of you can't find a beach, but that's just idea. You can have that right here in Michigan. We have that the same thing. We can be healthy. I mean, Kelly's really healthy. She lives here. As self-leaders, we're able to draw on our leadership qualities to maximize our health. And this is the idea in Zero Trends. That's 6 years ago. I'm starting to think a little differently now, but trying to make this come alive. That was my vision at that time. I think we're there. I think we can go to the next level of vision, and that's what Beyond Zero Trends is going to be about. Self-leadership, many of you have heard me before. You've heard this a lot. That's what I think a person needs to look like on the inside of them. On the inside, they have to have optimism, resilience, control, self-efficacy, confidence, self-esteem, vitality, vigor. That's inside of me. Attitude, creativity. All those things need to really be there. And I'm in charge of getting there, and I can get there. I know enough about neuroscience now that we can make it happen. But it's not good enough. We have to have the environment to help us, whether it's the organization or whether it's the family. The culture and environment culture can, on the upper left-hand side, that can be for company, can be for the community, can be the family. Over on the right-hand side, upper right-hand, is social support from all the people that you engage with. And then the bottom right-hand side, the company can help you, and health plans can help you with engaged patient roles and consumerism. And then also everyone helps around knowledge and health literacy, negotiation skills. And meaningful work is so important. And that's just absolutely important. Meaningful work, meaningful life. In the middle at the top, we all need in ourselves and in our organizations, we know what's our purpose. That's where it starts. In values, mission, vision. And then these are other words we add to that. So, and that's probably more than I was going to talk about it, but I feel so passionate about that. So, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer now to talk about positive health. I've sort of set the stage for her, and Jennifer will take it quite a ways further than I've done so far. So Jennifer?
Good afternoon. I hope everybody can hear me. Dee, a sound check real quick. You hear me okay?
Yeah, you could talk a little louder maybe.
Okay, how's this?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Right, Dee, great introduction, thank you. One of the things that I've been interested across my career, sorry, I'm fiddling trying to make this work, okay, is just how do we create thriving individuals, and what aspects of ourselves and our surroundings really contribute to that. And there's quite a lot of research now that has basically a confluence of research around various, like Dee said, physiological research, and much of the literature and study of identical twins has led some of the folks within the positive disciplines to determine that really our genetics only make up about half of our set point for outlook. And so, while we're used to thinking of people as sort of genetically being curmudgeons or genetically being happy folks, about 40% of that can really be impacted. We can take intentional action to change the way that we operate and look out at our worlds, and that's so fascinating and so inspiring for me. So how do we really, and I hope everybody is interested in looking deeper into how we really can, as an industry, bring things to the folks we're trying to help, that really can help them take these intentional actions that really can help them and improve their outlook. We really do still have to choose to do it. I mean, just nobody's going to do this to us. We have to take some time and care about it, and really apply ourselves like we would any other thing we're trying to change in our lives. But as we sat down to really determine what we could bring to the industry, we weren't really interested in more programs around diet and exercise and so forth. And in the self-leadership pillar, we thought what really is missing at this point is something that helps people build this notion of self-leadership and build a more positive outlook and frame for viewing life in a number of different ways. And so what we developed is, and we talked about this a little bit, and really we're not trying to push a product, but more a way of looking at what we can bring to people in wellness that really expands on what they already have, out there, what we already have out there as an industry, and also that really helps people who are healthy, and everybody. But again, we heard so much, from people we were working with that the folks in their organization who are already healthy feel like it's some of the coaching that they were being asked to do wasn't necessarily relevant for them. So we've done some of this kind of work where we've brought our programs around resilience and optimism and change and decision making to the table, and gotten really good feedback that people across the board, but especially folks who are healthy and those that we want to help stay healthy, really love the idea of growing in ways that aren't necessarily the usual approaches around wellness. So we're hoping that building an evidence base around this, the positive sciences that are really working hard and quickly growing an evidence base for the kinds of things that can influence our outlook. They're working hard, and we're hoping we can start to see more and more implementable and applied programs around this as well. And they're starting to hit the industry. But what we build our programs from, you can go ahead and switch, are these basic notions around resilience. There is quite a research now around resilience. A lot of it's been done with our armed forces. Martin Seligman at University of Pennsylvania kind of built his whole science and proposed the science of positive psychology to really expand the notion of mental health as more than the absence of a condition, depression, some of the negative mental health conditions that are so rampant right now. He wanted to really push that science the same way as we're trying to push health as more than the absence of disease. He's pushing mental health as more than the absence of mental illness and mental stress and mental conditions. And so resilience is a concept and a construct that has really been important to this whole science. It's shown to be to more and more, the research is showing that it actually helps people with their physical health as well, not just in terms of dealing with stress, but the run-on effects that has on your health. So organizations are really remiss if they're not taking advantage of digging deeper into these kinds of positive sciences, both on the individual level, and that's what we're talking about here, but as Dee mentioned too, on an organizational level, there are positive factors and positive environments and cultures that can really help support this as well. Optimism. Optimism has been around for quite a while as well, but initially the early research on optimism was sort of oriented toward dispositional optimism and the thought that it wasn't really all that malleable, and that we've grown to see that very differently as well. It can be changed. People have to want to change, so it takes some doing, it takes some practicing, but it can, as Dee mentioned earlier, we can really practice reframing the way that we think, and it gets easier and easier because of the neural pathways. As we build those, we kind of turn what might have been sort of a dusty road into more of a superhighway of optimism, and why you might not be able to take somebody who's really a true optimistic or a true pessimist into a flaming optimist, which we all would love to be. You know, you can certainly impact that at the very least by that 40% that we outlined earlier. It also is being tied more and more to not only mental conditions and health, but physical health as well. So we're starting to see those kinds of outcomes in the literature that's coming out of the positive psychology and the positive organizational scholarship literature. Again, this is just more of that research. They have people who are more optimistic, more happy, have fewer health problems, have better relationships, and that social support. It's all so interwoven. It can be with families, workplaces, communities, but so, you know, that bigger picture, you know, as we're talking today, we're talking about individuals, but there's no way to really dissect an individual from the influences of their immediate and broader environments. So we're not trying to, you know, focus on the individual to the exclusion of their environment and social support, but in the way that individuals operate also can build those environments and those better relationships. So that's it's reciprocal. Go ahead, Dee. Another nice thing that's coming out of the this evolving frame from, you know, these being more dispositional states and malleable ways of operating is the interventions that can help us change. And these have been developed over the last 10 to 15 years. There's quite a science around these now, but counting one's blessings, gratitude and gratefulness is really showing to be a very good way of developing a more positive mindset. We have a gratitude exercise in the self-leadership modules that we'll talk about in a little while. These acts of kindness, self-generated acts of kindness. Again, we're starting to see some of the interactions, like when is an act of kindness really good for a person? Those kinds of questions we're moving on to in the science. But how do you use your signature strengths? This is a whole values and action approach that that has evolved out of the same body of, the same pool of thought that positive psychology has come from. So how do you help somebody identify what is their own signature strength and then use that in their lives, in their work, and using signature strengths has also been tied to health and well-being, and you can imagine how organizing somebody's job and work can help not only them have a more meaningful work and a relationship, but also impact their health, and how important that would be for organizations to recognize. So what we've done then is taken some of these and others kinds of interventions and these constructs and thoughts and brought them into what we call the Self-Leadership Project. And these are 4 areas. We did talk about this last time as well. We'll go a little deeper only to really show you the kinds of activities that can be brought either in a program like this or an app. We're starting to see things out there in the environment that not only, we haven't seen anything really that has this kind of a breadth of things all together in the same place, but we're starting to see work on purpose and meditation. There's a lot on the 1 moment meditation even. There's also a very a burgeoning literature around the kinds of true physiological changes that meditating, mindfulness meditation especially, can have on your RNA. So it actually changes your the gene expression. Really, really powerful stuff. And again, as Dee said earlier, it's not necessarily what we say today, but it's what you do and take from this. So we're not trying to necessarily sell you on the idea of these modules, but just the idea that these concepts can be embedded in our approaches and used to really round out the kind of programs that we can bring to organizations. So we mentioned this before, but self-leadership, we have focused in that module on values, helping someone really outline what their values are in life, how they can translate those into a purpose and vision, and then work with those in their lives and understand the kinds of things that they do every day, how those things impact their ability to live their values. And those things might be health changes as well. It might be that somebody builds a set of values and they realize that it takes changing their diet to really have more energy in order to live the values that they've said they really hold. Resilience, so how do we really build a positive outlook? How do we grow happiness ourselves? And again, this all comes back to self-leadership, so somebody has to want to do it. We can't force people through these modules, and we don't believe we should, but if they take a look and find something of value in and understand that it is possible to change, that they might find something here or in something like these in an organization to really start the process. That brings us to change, and that really, how do you really help somebody grow, and how do you help themselves grow? And we believe, and many are now starting to, and not even starting, a lot of coaching approaches focus on strengths, help people reframe negative thinking, and then create a plan for change. And we'll talk a little bit more about how things like this, in our approach, we bring this around to complemented coaching approach. And the decision making is based off of behavioral economics. So these, the notion that emotions and intuitions are they aren't necessarily negative, but they can influence us in unseen ways and understood ways. We often believe that we are rational and make good decisions, and we weigh the benefits and costs of the decision, of the alternatives, and come up with a rational approach to our decision making. And it isn't really true. Sometimes emotions and intuitions influence us in ways that aren't positive and that aren't necessarily rational. And so understanding when those kinds of things are operating, trying to take a look and pause, those kinds of things are so important in really building a better way of making decisions, small and large. So those minute decisions that you make every day, understanding those, as well as understanding the kinds of mindsets and biases that drive large decisions every day. And how does our environment shape that as well? Choice architecture is something that's really starting to come into play. Often, I think marketing experts have been using this for decades. So understanding how we are being influenced by the choice architecture of others around us, and then how can we influence our environment ourselves to make sure that it's aligned in a way that really helps us make decisions, small and large, every day. And that's not only by choices that we make within our homes, but by the way we operate with our environment as well. I'm starting to try not to go, through my community in a way that puts me. There's a place that has the most tremendous French fries in town, and you can smell it in your car with the air conditioning going. And I don't go that way anymore because I know somehow I'll end up in there and I'll have French fries because that's my big weakness. So some of the ways that we bring these to people through these modules is through the activities. These modules actually have quite a bit of information in them. They are designed to be very lean, though, in terms of the kinds of text and so forth, and they're very graphic. We also have a little video at the beginning of each one that's, we think, quite motivating, and it's got nice music, and it kind of gets people ready to go through the module, and it's got characters that you identify with, that we found people have identified with anyway, that really are going through some of these things in their lives, and then those characters introduce you to this process. But this is an example of one of the activities. So this is our values activity. This is something that Angela Camilleri was really instrumental in designing and developing these, and I helped with that, and Jackie as well in our company. But we went to work with Margie Blanchard from the Ken Blanchard companies. She's the one that really helped us. We actually went through this activity as a company, and then she helped us really put this into our modules. So having a set of values that you select from, and we have values outlined here. There's many, many here that you can choose from, or you can put your own value in, and then honing it down. So from that list, how do you really choose the top 10, and then rank them? And I can't remember if these are my actual values, but we'll see. They look pretty good. Maybe I'll claim them. But anyway, so then rank those, and then you can actually go through the next activity, which is connecting your values with your actions. And I think that should be the next slide, Dee. So when you connecting your values with your actions, you come up with a way of, you basically go through the exercise of saying, of thinking about how you demonstrate those. I say I have a value of family. So whenever I make time for eating with my mother, I demonstrate my value of family, and I'm trying to do that more and more. Whenever I make an effort to focus when I'm distracted, or for myself, when I make an effort to go work someplace where I won't be distracted, and that's an example of this sort of choice architecture. I have an issue with distraction. How do I set up my work environment so that I'm not distracted? And again, you can kind of see where that kind of thinking combines constructs from each of these, or ideas from each of these modules. Whenever I put myself in someone else's shoes, you can read these, I won't go through them, but you can see that even taking the time to go through this kind of an activity helps people start to live these values each day, and make the connection between the things that they can do in their lives to really live values. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is a really nice one, and I try to do this every day. And I've noticed that when I get up in the morning, it's easier and easier for me to just see small things, because I've started trying to do it, and now it's happening more naturally. But the exercise that we, write down three good things. This is kind of the, I think this is Sonia Lubomirsky's work, and others have found that very positive psychological and physical outcomes are associated with just being grateful, noticing the small things in your life, and the kinds of things that people put into this activity are really nice. You can see, somebody smiled at me on the street today. That noticing those kinds of things can really start to add up, and it doesn't have to be big things. It can be just tiny things. Start to notice the taste of a fresh, ripe apple. That's another way that you can start to really savor the healthier things that you eat. And again, that ties back to diet. I'm trying more personally to savor more the good foods that I eat, and less the chocolate. Although chocolate isn't ever going to, I think, leave my world. Go ahead and go. I'll try to go through these a little more quickly, but change, positive reframing, creating a plan for change, remembering your best is an activity that coaches can often work through with people that they're coaching. And then the decision making, okay, yeah, and positive reframing. These, as I said, these kinds of things are are more common coaching approaches these days, and we're finding that the companies that we work with want to bring these modules into their coaching approach, and we believe that that's the most effective way to really get some of these activities in place, is not only allowing people to go through this kind of stuff on their own, but having it come up in coaching and be available activities that coaches can help the employees work through as the coaching evolves. Decision making, again, evaluating your environment. This is an activity where you can start to outline the choice architecture of your environment. So you can enter for home, community, and work. What are the positive things around each of these areas that influence you? And then what are the negatives? And then it goes on to help you walk through how you might change some of those things. So how can I get more out of positive light? The environmental psychology and the psychology around evolution is really showing the importance of light and the positive surroundings in terms of the flow of your environment are really helpful to your mental and physical health. So what can you do to really, too many snack foods is a big thing for me, and that also involves exchanges with the person I live with, because he's a skinny person that doesn't seem to be negatively impacted by snack foods, so they are rampant in our house. So I have to negotiate, talk and negotiate and have some social skills and try to build some social support around, could you please move your snack foods so that I don't see them, and hide them so that I can't find them, because I will. So anyway, these are actually things from my activities, so you can see I've got challenges with these things as well. And then the next area, but I have some positive things as well, as you can see. One of the things I worked for all my life is to have my horses at home, and that's something that I find extremely valuable. And so I really start to, every morning I wake up and I'm thankful for that. I talked a little bit earlier, and Dee did too, about coaching. How can coaches use not only our modules, but these kinds of concepts? You can see ours is just one mechanism for getting these concepts into practice in organizations and offering these to individuals. But how can coaches really use these practices as well as these modules to really help people become stronger self-leaders? So what normally, was this where you were going to take it back, Dee?
No, you can finish this
Okay.
one in a few minutes, just a couple minutes.
This slide really, you can go ahead and just build this out. This really is designed to show that the programs within organizations, programs like these, the health assessments that we do, the health coaching that we do, they all build toward a positive organization, a positive culture, but also there are things not here that also build toward a positive culture. It isn't just around programs, but this is what is reflected here are the kinds of things that help individuals better positive leadership. There it is. So also positive leadership within an organization and positive organizational scholarship, really, applying the principles of those practices build a truly positive organizational culture, but supplementing coaching content with these kinds of constructs and activities, and then understanding from our health assessments when some of these things may really be needed. We are building into our health assessment the concepts of emotional health, social health, workplace health, and so those will be available for companies to look at as outcomes, and drivers as well, and drivers of coaching content and coaching interactions, but outcomes over time. So the bigger picture here is what we really want you to think about. And I think I will turn it back over to Dee now.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Let me just finish up just with a couple of minutes. This is something we talked about before when we first started, trying to focus you on thinking about these things. And what, if anything, will you do differently? Some of this, I hope, some of this reinforce what you're already doing and reinforce some of your strengths. Maybe there's something you want to do differently, maybe there's not. Maybe this stimulated something that we didn't even talk about, and that would be really creative, and I'd love to know what that would be, because there are so many other things that people can do, and it's a big world out here. And what's right for one company is not right for another company, and so the cookie cutter thing and wellness can't be anymore. We have to customize everything. We've got different kinds of people. A lot of things that most people are 90% the same, but in some of their environments they come out differently. So the work environment is the biggest single differentiator, I think, in the culture. We've talked about this forever. This was put out in the early 70s, and we adopted it in '83 as a way to think about health. Now what you just heard from us, you see that we're now thinking about going beyond, and beyond zero trends, self-leaders, thriving, sustainable, energetic well-being is where our goals are. So that's what this program was about, and that's what our whole feelings about, it's what our book's about. The three main themes we have is shared values, shared results, positive health, and measure what matters. Those are the three themes that run through us as the book runs through us as we strive to create environments and so forth, and create people and give people opportunities to go where they want to go in this continuum. And certainly that's still up to them. So the summary, briefly, if you heard me before, you've always heard this. This has been around for a long time. It could be a do-nothing company on the left, and then in the 5 pillars, you see what they do. Traditional company, comprehensive company, and of course, we're talking about a champion company. We got the vision, the systemic, we recognize things for it to be sustainable, and we're measuring things other than just risk factors and ROI. And I think the field is making a major move away from just total economic measures, and you don't want to stop doing them, but not to be the main focus anymore. Because when you do ROIs, now you're getting results for the company, and so the employers are thinking, why? What about me? So that's one thing we have on the shared values and shared results, and we want to measure things that are important for the people as well as for the company. And wellness has sold all the wellness things have been sold to the companies, or the benefit to the company. And we think we've missed the benefit for people, and that's really critical, and that's part of our message. Well, Kelly and Michaela, we're back to you. If any
All
questions, right. We went over time, I think.
No, you're good. We do have a couple. Megan and Nancy have raised their hands, so I'm going to get to you guys just in a second. But I thought I'd give you a moment to get your head ready to ask a question. Let's see. Bill wants to know how do you see the difference between flourishing and thriving, or is there a difference?
Well, that's an interesting question, and we all look at that. Flourishing, I think, is probably more for an individual. Thriving would be individual and an organization. It's really difficult. Jennifer, you may have a better view of that, but they're all. I sort of lump them all together because there's more overlap than there's uniqueness.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I know Martin Seligman originally. His work was around happiness, and he's since gone toward flourishing, because I think there are a lot of ways that people could flourish without necessarily being what people usually consider happy. Seems to be all about the positive end, but flourishing kind of is a much richer, I think, concept, construct, and thriving, I think, is in the same general bucket. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, there might be minor differences, but
Okay.
I think we're getting into, semantics that may not have huge differential impacts.
Yeah, and I think that's right. But whatever you use, just know how you're using it and uh, be explicit in how it's being used. And I don't think we should be claiming one's any broader or any better than the other. Uh, but people, if people know how you use it, then uh, they'll either move towards that way or move towards the other.
Hmm.
It's like healthy and positive health and so
Hmm.
forth. And we're all struggling, and that's one of the things with our profession. We we, we can't decide, like wellness and well-being. Some
Right.
people prefer wellness, some people prefer well-being, some people think well-being is bigger than wellness, and some people think wellness is. No, it's holding back our profession. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also questions out. I mean, not questions, but there's, is it resilience or is it grit or is it, I mean, there's all these notions out there that are very highly related, and they all, I think, draw from the same general pool, but they might have, finesse differences that.
Hmm.
But I think it's important to look at all of them, and yeah, or to look in that direction first of all.
Right. Right.
To go to that well when we think about health, and make sure we include those kinds of constructs in our thinking and our approaches.
Okay. Megan, I'm going to unmute your mic. Are you there? Megan? All right. I'm going to remute you. Let's try Nancy. Nancy? Nancy. Oh, Nancy. Oh, boy. Okay. That's all right.
Maybe they are muted.
I unmuted them. They must be experiencing microphone terror.
Or maybe they are muted themselves. I know I'm.
Oh, it didn't look like it, but whatever. Type in your questions. We'll do it this way. Let's see, Jennifer, you're talking about a complete paradigm shift with worksite wellness within the worksite wellness community. How receptive do you and Dee think that the worksite wellness community will be to this massive change?
Personally, I think it's coming. I think people are really in the wellness community are coming to this very quickly.
Hmm.
And I think that frankly, I think the employers are requiring it. It's just senior leaders get this. I don't know if they're willing to. We're sort of in that area now, that gray area. Is this development, or is this wellness, or is this leadership, or is it everything? And I think it's everything. And that's another paradigm shift as well. Just thinking bigger and more strategic generally. But I think I don't know. What do you think, Dee? I mean,
I would add that I think that we're not proposing any massive change. I think wellness is necessary, absolutely necessary. But for the individual, I think we need to add something that individuals can go further than just focusing on the kind of things that we're doing on the physical side. And I think the emotional side, I think, is where the next generation of improvements are going to come, broadening of people's visions. I think the same thing goes for the organizations. We're proposing much more change in the organization than we are in individuals, because they've been left off the hook because we've focused so much on the individual. We haven't focused on the organization. It's time for organizations to stand up and take some responsibility. So that's our major focus for change. I did like the question, or the suggestion or question about thriving and flourishing, because I think that means it's on the minds of someone, and that is a good sign. If we got no questions around that, I would wonder, well, maybe everyone already knows it, or maybe everyone just sort of staying on here just to be listening, but they're thinking, and so that's a great sign, I think, for our field.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier in that presentation too, we had that more general slide that, or the broader slide that talked about health and the environment and all the various aspects of approaches that we could use, including the health assessment and the health coaching. And these, some of the so that should, it outlines really we're adding. We're not trying to say change everything else that you're doing. We're just saying that, you know, in some ways you can add these things that would have value and would make programs, we believe, more impactful. And in other areas, like I don't think that some of the change efforts that we outline in our change module would be that new to some of the coaches. Mm-hmm. They understand these days. We're finding that they understand these, you know, the notion of small wins and positive reframing, and so it's we're finding that the wellness program, the wellness companies that we work with, they want to incorporate this into what they do. Mm-hmm. And they're asking us to help them do that.
Let me ask you, we've just got like 3 more questions, but they keep coming. Are you guys good to stick around for another 10 or 15 minutes to answer these, or should we end it now and I can send you these? How would you prefer?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I can stick around. I think Jennifer probably can too.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, all right. Well, then let me just ask you a few more questions. This is from Carol. And I hope you guys can stick around too, but if not, we are recording it, so no worries. How do you build effective questions, content regarding emotional health, etc., into your health assessment without making employees feel that you're being intrusive? It seems to be a fine line.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of questions that we ask aren't too terrible. They're not any more intrusive than asking somebody about their, you know, some of the health issues that they might have. For example, you know, one of the questions is, you know, how much do you agree with the statement, I have so much in life to be thankful for? Mm-hmm. You know, I find ways to express gratitude to others. I mean, these cannot, just answering these questions might even bring up some, you know, thoughts about, wow, you know, maybe I should be doing some more of this kind of stuff. I keep up my spirits when I suffer hardships. Mm-hmm. You know, those are resilience questions. So, you know, I feel they're not terribly, they're positively framed as well. So it's not like, you know, a lot of the depression kinds of questions that people get asked, you know, most health assessments ask about those kinds of things. I would think these would be easier to answer, but I'm biased. I recognize my bias there.
We also recognize from a historical point of view, when we first put out the health risk appraisal in 1980, and we even got questions all the way up to the early 1990s where we couldn't even ask about your drinking behavior, your smoking behavior, because they felt that was intrusive. So the world has changed a lot since then, and I think that more and more people are starting to accept the idea that you know, depression can be talked about now, and so the whole world is moving in a direction, but there will be some people that do find that. But I think on the health assessments, you just give people the option; they don't have to answer the questions. So let people make their own choice. So I think that's the way it's going to have to be handled, because there is some. The question is a sensitive question, and it's some empathy there in asking that question. And we just have to realize that not everyone is ready for this, and not every organization will be ready for it either. Some of the very toxic organizations wouldn't even let you complete your presentation.
Oh, that would be a sad state of affairs.
Right.
Okay, well, here's another question from Lynn. Do you have any recommendations on resources/programs available to implement mindful-based programs for a company that operates in 44 states? That's a big one.
Yeah.
I don't know about any there's some out there. I think you could search Google or some ways to find them. I know if they would ask about resilience, I have some resilience people that